Myself Dr. Megha, Assistant Professor, School of Legal Studies, K.R. Mangalam University. Let's start with the second session in Introduction to Torts, and that is General Defenses in Tort. So, whenever a plaintiff brings an action against a defendant for a particular tort, providing existing of all essentials of that tort, the defendant would be liable for that. But some privileges are also available for the defendant to defend himself. So, if plaintiff is eligible, if plaintiff is capable of establishing all the essentials that are there in the tort like act and omission, wrongful act, infringement of legal rights, breach of legal duty, legal remedy, legal damages, if these all essentials are there, defendant would surely be liable. But it is not hard and fast rule that defendant would be liable 100%. There are certain privileges that are given to the defendant, and if any of them is applicable in that given situation, the defendant can defend himself, he can avail that defense. And these privileges are voluntary non-fit injuria, plaintiff the wrongdoer, inavoidable accident, then act of God, private defenses, mistake, necessity, statutory authority, and few more. Let's discuss these defenses one by one. First of all is voluntary non-fit injuria. Voluntary means voluntarily, non means no, fit, not fit, injuria, injury. So, in a simple sense, it means that if any person has suffered any injury to which he consented, that means if he has suffered that injury voluntarily, then no liability arises for defendant. So, if there is consent of the plaintiff that is involved there and this consent is a free consent, then the plaintiff will not be entitled for any kind of compensation. And the logic behind this defense is that no one can enforce a right that he has voluntarily abandoned. If one person has waived off his right with his own consent, then later on he cannot claim that I am having this right and I would be entitled for the damages if any comes out of that liability. Let's discuss some major leading case laws that is based on voluntary non-fit injuria. The first one was Hall versus Brookline Auto Racing Club. In this case, the plaintiff was a spectator of a car racing event and the track on which the car was going on belonged to the defendant. During the race, two cars collided and out of which one was thrown among the people who were watching the race. The plaintiff was injured and then he claimed compensation from the defendant because that wave belonged to defendant. In this case, the court held that plaintiff knowingly undertook the risk of watching the race. These kind of sports include this kind of risk where car can flown and it can go to the spectators. So, if the person is knowing this risk and he is coming voluntarily to watch that race, that means he is abandoning his right if anything happens in that situation that is out of the control of the defendant. So, it is a type of injury which could not be foreseen by anyone that is watching the event. So, defendant was not liable in this case. Now, the essential conditions for voluntary non-fit injuria to apply this defense that the consent must be free. The consent that is given by the plaintiff, it must be free in that situation. Now, what is free consent? So, free consent is a consent which is not obtained by any kind of force, coercion, fraud, undue influence, mistake, misrepresentation. If any consent is taken out of these factors, then consent cannot be said to be free. Second condition is scienti non-fit injuria. We are talking about voluntary non-fit injuria which does not include scienti non-fit injuria, which means knowledge of risk is not equal to consent of risk. Voluntary non-fit injuria, this defense includes consent. But Santai non-fit injuria, it includes knowledge of risk but not the consent to risk. To explain it in a more clear way, we have a case, that is Smith versus Charles Bakers and Sons, that is also known as stone quarry case, in which the plaintiff was employed by the defendant in a stone quarry. Large chunk of rocks were being conveyed from one site to the another by the help of cranes. One of the stone fell and injured the plaintiff working there. It was held by the court that there is mere knowledge and there was no consent, as the defendant took the defense that plaintiff was aware of this risk, he was working over there even after knowing the risk. But court held that plaintiff was just having the knowledge of risk. He never consented that okay, whatever happened, if stone fall then I will not make anybody liable, it would be my problem only. So here the court held that this is the mere knowledge and the maxim Santai non-fit injuria would be applicable but not the voluntary non-fit injuria, and the defendant would be liable to pay the damages to the plaintiff. There are few exceptions also to this voluntary non-fit injuria. First one is rescue cases. The case is Hens versus Harwood is there. What happened in this case, that there was some car that is standing in the street, some children were playing in the street, they put some stone to the horse and horse suddenly started running with that cart. Those children who were playing over there, they were having some danger of injury because of that horse and the cart. One policeman who was standing over there, he was watching all that thing and he suddenly jumped into that situation to save the children from that particular situation. In that case, the defendant took the defense, the cart, the owner of the cart, he took the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria, that the policeman who suffered the injury in saving of those children has voluntarily suffered that injury by saving those children. But the court held that this is a rescue case. While you are making certain your things, standing over there without any attendance in the public places, then you have to be very careful. And you are not taking care in handling those things, and if it might cause any damage to some person, something, then if anybody who is coming in between to rescue that thing, to rescue that damage, would be entitled for the compensation, and voluntary non-fit injuria will not have any application in that situation. So, this is the first exception to voluntary non-fit injuria. Second exception is breach of statutory duty. So, if any injury is caused to another person by breach of duty by defendant, that is imposed by statute, then the defendant cannot lead voluntary non-fit injuria. And if defendant is negligent, as it was in the rescue cases also where the defendant was negligent in handling his thing properly, then again he cannot take the defense of voluntary non-fit injuria. Let us move to the another case law, that is Padmavati versus Dugga Nayaka, that is related to the voluntary non-fit injuria only, the leading case. In this case, the driver of the jeep took the jeep to fill petrol. Two strangers took a lift in the jeep. The jeep got toppled due to some problem in the right wheel. The two strangers who took lift were thrown out of the jeep and they suffered some injuries leading to that death of one person. In this case, court held that the master of the driver could not be made liable as it was a case of sheer accident and the strangers had voluntarily got into the car. Again, there was no negligence on the part of defendant, that is again an exception to voluntary non-fit injuria. If it was so, then maybe the defendant can be made liable, but as it was not he was not negligent, the strangers took the lift by their own consent, they voluntarily got into that vehicle. So, in that situation, voluntary non-fit injuria had an application and the court did not make liable that defendant. Another case that we had just discussed, Hall versus Brookline, it was the same case of the car racing. Then second defense is plaintiff the wrongdoer, that is based on the maxim ex turpi causa non oritur actio, which means no action arises from an immoral causes. So, when the plaintiff himself is the wrongdoer, when he himself initiating that wrong, he is himself doing that morally wrong thing, then he cannot claim any kind of remedy for the act of defendant. For example, if you can see this picture, a person is trying to trespass in the land. Trespass is entering into somebody's land without that person's permission. That person is trying to trespass in the land of somebody else. If he got injured, can he claim compensation from the plaintiff whose land is there? No. Why? Because trespass is itself a wrong. There are certain wire that is there on that land, and that person is forcibly making an entry into that land. He is himself doing that morally wrong thing. So, when he is doing something which is wrong in itself, he cannot make anybody liable for the loss for which that person is not liable. Then third one is inevitable accident. This is another defense against the tort. It means an unexpected injury. Accident is when we don't expect anything and it happens suddenly. That is considered as inevitable accident, and if the same accident could not have been stopped or avoided in spite of taking all the care and precautions on the part of defendant, then the defendant cannot be made liable for the same. For example, in the case of Stanley versus Powell, the defendant and the plaintiff went to a pheasant shooting. The defendant fired at the pheasant, but the bullet, after getting reflected by an oak tree, hit the plaintiff and he suffered serious injuries. So, can you see in the case? They both went for a shooting. One person fired a shot, but it missed and it hit an oak tree and came back. And while coming back, it hit the plaintiff. So, it was a sheer accident. It was completely inevitable accident. So, in this case, it happened that the defendant was not liable for any kind of damage that is caused to the plaintiff. The next defense is act of God, that is also called vis major. It is the defense in which the defendant has no control over the occurs and the damage that is caused by the forces of nature. And again, if there is force of nature is involved, the person has nothing to do with these kind of things, then the defendant cannot be made liable for such kind of damage that is caused by the act of God. The essential element for the application of this defense is that natural forces working should be there. If no natural force is there, it is all human made thing, then the act of God defense cannot be made applicable. One more thing, that there must be an extraordinary occurrence. If it's ordinary one, if we can speculate that thing that okay, this can happen in this area, that cannot be considered as act of God. So, if it is something that we cannot speculate, we cannot anticipate, then if it happens in extraordinary form for which no one can anticipate or guard it against, that can be considered as a defense of act of God. Let us take the case of Nicholas versus Marsland, that how this act of God can be made applicable as a defense. The defendant created an artificial lake on his land by collecting water from natural streams. Once there was an extraordinary rainfall. Please focus on the keywords, that there was an artificial lake that was made by the defendant for collecting water from natural streams. That means there was no such kind of natural water resources over there. So, that person has to make the artificial lake. Again, A keyword is extraordinary rainfall. That means that was not anticipated in that area. So, there was an extraordinary rainfall, heaviest in human memory. The embankments of the lake got destroyed and washed away all the 4 bridges belonging to the plaintiff. The court held that defendant were not liable as the same was due to act of God. The occurrence was extraordinary. It was something that was heaviest in the human memory, and because of that damage was caused. So, that is why the court held that defendant cannot be made liable, and he was successful in availing the defense of act of God. Kallulal versus Hemchand, another case. The wall of a building collapsed due to the normal rainfall of about 2.66 inches. Now, again a keyword, it's a normal rainfall. It's not something which we can say extraordinary. The incident resulted in the death of respondent's children. The court held that defense of act of God cannot be pleaded by the appellant in this case, as that much rainfall was normal and something extraordinary is required to plead the defense. That means defendant was negligent in taking proper care of that building, and that rainfall was just a normal rainfall for that area, for which act of God defense is not applicable. Next defense is private defense, that is available both in crimes and tort also, that is also considered as self defense. So, private defense is something which gives right to a person to protect one's life and property, and for that it has allowed the use of reasonable force to protect himself and his property. Here we are using the word reasonable. There are certain essentials to apply this defense of private defense, that the use of force is justified only for the purpose of self-defense. There should be an imminent threat to a person's life or property. So, if we are having any chance to recourse that danger, if we are having any opportunity to avoid that danger, then right of private defense cannot be used. There must be an imminent threat that cannot be devoid of. Then we can only use this force for the purpose of self-defense, to defend ourselves, our property, not somebody else in the case of tort. Moreover, we are using a term here, reasonable force. So, whatever danger is coming to us, we can use the force, the reasonable and proportionate force to avoid that danger. If we are using the force more than that the danger is causing, then we cannot be entitled for this right to private defense. For example, A would not be justified in using force against B just because he believes that someday he will be attacked by B. There is no imminent danger is involved. So, if one is speculating, okay, that person will hit me hit me one day, he will cause damage to me one day, then to avoid that thing, he is causing damage, he is using his defense at today only, that cannot be considered as a right to private defense. It must be reasonable one. For example, if A tried to commit a robbery in the house of B and B just drew his sword and chopped his head, then this act of A would not be justified. As I just told you that this force, whatever is being used in private defense and exercising this right of private defense, this must be proportionate one to the danger that is coming to the plaintiff. If that defense is exceeding the danger, it is not in that proportion, then this right of private defense cannot be exercised. The plaintiff would be entitled in that situation. And for the protection of property also, the law has only allowed taking such measures which are necessary to prevent the danger. Let us have one case, Ramanuja Mudali versus M. Gangan. In this case, a landowner, that is defendant, had laid a network of live wires on his land. The plaintiff, in order to reach his own land, tried to cross his land at 10 p.m. He received a shock and sustained some serious injuries due to the live wire. Moreover, there was no notice regarding it. One person is having right to protect its property. he can take the measures to protect his property from any kind of wrongful entries or trespass. But if one person is taking the measure like putting live wires on his land to protect his property, there must be some visible notice that these kind of things are there on the land. But defendant in this case has put the live wires on his land. Moreover, he didn't give any notice regarding the same, and plaintiff has to reach his own land by crossing that area only, and it was around 10 p.m. in the night, and he received some shock because he was not having any notice that live wires are there. So what happened in this case? Defendant took the defense of private defense of the property, that whatever he did to protect the property, but the defense was not applicable in this situation. Supreme Court rejected this case, this situation, that private defense cannot be availed. Why? Because there was no danger, no such kind of danger for which you have to put the live wire, and even if you are putting it, you have to give notice for the same. The measure should be reasonable one, even if to provide the property. Then another defense is of mistake, that is mistake of law, mistake of fact. In both the conditions, no defense is available. There is a legal maxim, that is ignorantia facit execusit, ignorantia juris non execusit, which means ignorance of fact is excusable, but ignorance of law is not excusable. This maxim is applicable only in criminal cases. This has nothing to do with the tort. Either it's mistake of fact or mistake of law, no defense is available to the defendant. Then move to the next defense, that is necessity. If an act is done to prevent greater harm, if slighter harm is caused to prevent a greater harm, even though the intention is involved, the act is done intentionally, the damage is caused intentionally, it serves as a good defense. For example, it was held in case of Lai versus Gladstone. It was held that the forcibly feeding of a person who was on a hunger strike, it is a good defense of necessity, because we are breaking the fast of a person who is dying of hunger. So in this case, slighter harm was caused to prevent the greater harm, and it was made applicable as a good defense. There is another case, Kopp versus Sharp. In this case, the defendant entered the plaintiff's premises without his permission, that can be considered as a trespass, to stop the spread of fire in the adjoining land where the defendant's master had the shooting rights. Since the defendant act was to prevent greater harm, so he cannot be made liable for the trespass. Another case, Crick versus Grigori. It is the case where this defense of necessity was not made applicable. A's sister-in-law hid some jewelry after the death of A from the room where he was lying dead, thinking that to be a more safe place. The jewelry got stolen from there, and a case was filed against A's sister-in-law for trespass to the jewelry. She took the defense of necessity, that whatever she did is to protect that property, to protect that jewelry. But her defense was denied, and she was held liable for trespass as the step she took was unreasonable. There was no such kind of necessity at that point of time. Then the next defense is of statutory authority. If an act is authorized by any act or statute, then it is not actionable, even if it would constitute a tort otherwise. It is a complete defense, and the injured party has no remedy if that act is done by the statutory permissions. For example, the case of Smith versus London and South Western Railway Corporation. The servants of a railway company negligently left the trimmings of hedges near the railway line. The sparks from the engine set fire to those hedges, and due to high winds, it got spread to the plaintiff's cottage, which was not very far from the line. The court held that railway authority was negligent. There was no such kind of statutory authority or the act that is permitted by the statute was involved, and plaintiff was entitled to claim compensation for the loss suffered. Now, some miscellaneous defenses are also available. For example, judicial acts, that no judge would be liable for any kind of act that is done in his judicial capacity. Then certain executive acts, that valid orders of a public power from a good make a good defense for a tort. But if officer maliciously arrests a person or takes his commodities, he will be liable. That cannot be considered as an executive act. And do not enjoy any protection except that consult by legislatures enactments. So, we cannot the executive cannot make their own enactments unless and until it is permissible, it is backed by the legislature. Then act done under parental or quasi parental authority. So, if parents scolds their children, they do something for the purpose of correcting their warts, their children. Same with the quasi parental authority like teachers, that is reasonable one. They cannot be considered as a they work as a valid defense against the tort. And the last one is act causing slight harm, that is de minimis non cause loss. Lex, that means nothing is a wrong to which a person cannot complain of. If it is causing a slight harm, that is very slight harm for which a normal person cannot complain of, that is again a good defense in the eyes of law. So, this is all about the defenses in the law of torts. Foremost is the voluntary non-fit injuria, then it is the plaintiff wrongdoer, vis major, act of God, inevitable accident, mistake, necessity, statutory authority, and some miscellaneous one like judicial authority, act done under parental or quasi parental authority, executive authority, and act causing slight harm. So, that is all for this session. Thank you.